It is extraordinary stuff that during a time of active war in Europe, Britain, under the Conservative government, should have hollowed out and cut the defence budget. It's astonishing. And now in 2025, a country whose government is pledging to uphold Ukraine's security and whose military is so depleted that it couldn't credibly lead a peacekeeping mission should one be required of it. It's not merely an administrative oversight, it's a damning indictment of years of strategic neglect, bureaucratic inertia and political short-termism. And the former Army Chief, Lord Dannatt, has sounded the alarm. And I did a piece yesterday about this, and it's again in the newspapers this morning. Britain's military is so run down that even the suggestion of leading a peacekeeping force in Ukraine would be quite embarrassing, he says. His words are not hyperbole. The British Army, once a global power force, has now shrunk to the size where the idea of deploying 10,000 troops for a rotating peacekeeping mission is beyond reach. With each 6-month rotation requiring 30 to 40,000 personnel, we simply don't have the numbers. And the issue is not just manpower, but also equipment and capability. A £17 billion black hole looms over the defence budget, according to the National Audit Office, hampering everything from missile stocks to warship maintenance. And Britain's defence posture has been reduced to a skeleton. Impressive in theory, fragile in practice. And to put this into practice, even during the Cold War, Britain spent between 4 to 7% of GDP on defence. In the early 1990s, as the Soviet Union collapsed, the figure remained at 3.8%. Today, NATO's target is 2%, and the UK prides itself on exceeding that at a 2.33%. But let's be blunt. This is inadequate for a nation that aspires to global influence. Compare this to what's happening across Europe. France is already expanding its military budget. Germany is undergoing the most significant rearmament since World War II. The Baltic states are on a war footing. The UK, meanwhile, is not committed to increasing spending beyond 2.5%, and even that target has no fixed timetable. Donald Trump's return to the White House adds an existential dimension to Britain's military crisis. The former, the president, in his former incarnation, said that unless NATO countries increase their defence spending, America's presence in Europe cannot be taken for granted. Now he's back, and he's going to make good on that. And there are rumours that America under Trump could even withdraw from NATO. In Warsaw last week, the US officials openly stated that European nations must invest now because America's presence will not last forever. If the UK struggles to meet even 2.5% of GDP on defence, how will it respond if Trump demands 3% or 5% under threat of US withdrawal from NATO? The harsh truth is that Britain has treated American military protection as an unlimited free resource for decades, and that era may soon be over. It's worth remembering that Britain's military decline didn't begin under this government, nor the last one, nor even the one before that, Tony Blair's. It's been decades long. It's been a persistent drip, drip, drip of a dereliction of duty. After the Cold War, defence budgets were slashed in the belief that history had ended, that Europe would never again witness large-scale conflict, and this belief persisted even after Russia invaded Georgia in 2008. It persisted even after Crimea was annexed in 2014, even after Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Britain's defence trajectory remains stagnant. There have been endless reviews, reports and strategic refreshes, yet the core issue remains: we are spending as though we are living in a post-war world when, as Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has put it, we are now living in a pre-war world. British governments have spent years believing that soft power, diplomacy, aid, economic influence could compensate for military decline. But soft power means nothing if it's not backed by credible hard power. And Ukraine is a case in point. Britain's been a leader in supporting Kyiv, training 50,000 Ukrainian troops, sending billions in military aid. But when Zelensky asks for peacekeepers, Britain cannot answer the call because it's been depleting its own forces. How can a nation that once ruled the seas, projected power across continents, deterred aggression from Moscow, now struggle to field a modest peacekeeping force. Part of the problem is economic miscalculation. The UK has prioritised short-term political gain over long-term security. And the recent budget saw no new funding for the Ministry of Defence, despite stark warnings from military leaders. In fact, core military of defence spending is being cut by $2.5 billion in real terms. Even more astonishingly, a portion of Britain's existing defence budget is being used to support Ukraine. While aiding Ukraine is strategically sound, it doesn't address Britain's own deficiencies. Defence is being outsourced, while our own armed forces remain underfunded and under-equipped. Lord Dannatt is absolutely right. Britain must evaluate its priorities. Roads, schools, hospitals are important, but none of these matter if the nation itself isn't secure. Military investment is not a discretionary expense. It's a fundamental insurance policy of a free society, and it's not merely about Ukraine. Across the world, conflicts are simmering from Taiwan to the Middle East. The 2020s will not be an era of peace. Yet Britain is slashing its defence budget in real terms while others are ramping theirs up. This is self-inflicted decline. If Britain is serious about its role as a global power, about upholding the rules-based order, about keeping the nation safe, about maintaining its position in the UN, then defence spending must be dramatically increased. There must be an immediate commitment to at least 3% of GDP on defence, not vague pledges, but real, sustained investment. We must expand the British Army. It must be back up to at least 100,000 regular troops. And not all this territorial army stuff. We need urgent procurement reform, ending waste and inefficiency, ensuring funds translate directly into usable capability. We need to rebuild our defence industries so Britain is not dependent on foreign suppliers for its own security. We've been here before. In the 1930s, Britain neglected its defences, believing that diplomacy alone could deter threats. By 1939, the cost of that illusion had become all too clear. Today, we're once again facing rising threat. Yet once again, we are deluding ourselves that we can avoid rearmament. The difference is that this time, America may not be there to save us. Defence spending is not a burden, it's an investment in stability, in deterrence and in national survival. If Britain doesn't reverse course now, not in 5 years, now, then Lord Dannatt's warning will prove true. We will not merely be unable to lead a peacekeeping force in Ukraine, but we may soon find ourselves unable to defend our own shores as well. The choice is stark. Will Britain reclaim its place as a serious military power, or will it become a spectator in its own security? The answer will define the decades to come. The answer will define our country.